Hello, I'm Jeff Pope and I'm delighted to be in FEST'. I find it very cathartic to talk to especially young writers and to pass on a little bit of what I've learned in my distressingly long career now. And I always make a point of saying things certainly to writers, but to all kinds of filmmakers, directors, producers, whatever, actors even. But you know, we make mistakes. Things don't go right. You lose confidence. You think you can't do this. And I think if I'm honest, which it happens to me, if I'm honest about that, I think it will help someone who's you know, the tyranny of the blank screen and they have to write something. I think if we can all share that and say, listen, I get scared of the blank page too. I dry, I get blocked, and you know, it goes away. If you just you know, if you want it and you work at it enough, you'll excuse me, you'll get there.
You are a screenwriter, but you started as a journalist.
Yes.
You started making questions.
Yes.
Do you still make them?
I do. Since I first started my first real job, I was asking questions, and I still asking questions now. I still consider my job to go out there and find out what's going on, find out as much as I can, and then reduce that into a story with a beginning and a middle and an end, which makes sense of what's happened. You know, I still you know, as a at heart a journalist, you know, a siren goes past. Still a bit of you thinks, where are they going? What's happened? And you know, what does it mean? And you know, who's in danger and whatever. You know, your mind goes. So I still feel like that, even after all these years.
And that's why you always try to make films about reality, about something that happened, really happened.
Yes.
That's
yes. I've always been infected with that reality virus. I started. That's how I started. I found very early on that being nosy, you can be paid for it. You can earn a living being nosy, and so I still am.
Okay, you've worked in television and cinema. Do you prefer one of them? And now we have the streaming.
I don't have a preference. I think I don't have a preference between you know, a movie, television, a streamer. You know, to come to festivals like this is wonderful. But in the end, it's about the work, and it's if something that I really believe in and I'm passionate about, I can have this, I can get it made as a piece of television that is just as satisfying as a movie.
But do you think that you would tell the story of Philomena, for instance, differently if it is only for television?
I don't think. I think Philomena would have worked. Yes, I think Philomena would have worked just as well. It was funny enough. On what are we, Tuesday? On Sunday night, it was broadcast in the UK just as I was getting ready to fly out to Espina, and so I think it would have worked as a piece of television. It worked really well as a movie, but I think the reason it worked was because it was a great story. That is what underpins everything. Doesn't matter whether doesn't matter whether you call it a movie or a piece of television, or it's a streamer with a huge budget. It's, in the end, is it a good story? That's all that matters.
That's the main thing you want to have in your films. It's a good story.
Yes, yes.
And I was hearing you talking about Arrogance.
Yes.
Why do you think it's arrogance to want to tell that story in that way?
When I was talking about arrogance, what I meant was, if you think of a film set and there's 100 people and they're all doing their jobs, you're the one who's saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. Because you're not saying it, but your script is saying it. You're the one saying, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And I think a young writer might, if they're naturally a modest person, they may think, oh, I shouldn't, it's not for me to do that. And what I was trying to say was, don't worry about that. If it appears arrogant, then be arrogant. Tell people exactly what you want them to do. And that is, that is key to being a writer. It's getting what you've written and your ideas translated into, into film, into television. So I don't want people to be arrogant. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, don't be scared of being, confident and front foot about your work, and being forceful and demanding the best.
And about humor, why do you think that we laugh in a tragedy?
Because they're so close. It's the two coexist. Right next to each other, and I don't know what it is. I think we search for in a story as sad as, say, Philomena. I think you search for an outlet. You tense and you're thinking, I can't believe what they did to this woman. And then someone says something funny, and then the laugh is huge because you need that outlet. So I think in life no one walks around laughing the whole time, thinking everything's wonderful and funny. Of course they don't. But at the same time, nobody walks around the whole time thinking everything's terrible. There is some laughter, even in difficult moments, in dark moments, there is laughter. And that, I'm just saying, reflect life.
Of all your works, do you have one that you prefer? I've seen you cry in one of the...
Yeah, that gets me a lot. I think it's very difficult to say because they're all my children.
Yeah, of course.
I think I was very proud of a piece I made. It was about the wife of a great train robber, and it was just everything I hoped it would be. It was a television series, and it was called Mrs. Biggs, and it was perfect. And I became very good friends with her, and we lost her. She's passed away now. I'm very proud of that. But I suppose I'd have to say the most successful thing I've done is Philomena, because still a lot of people love that film, and I love the pleasure and the thought that it's provoked. Still, nearly 10 years later, still that thought that that those mothers, those women were not nothing, and that they meant something, and that they didn't, that their babies were taken from them, not because they didn't want the babies, but because, they were forced into it.
And now you have a new love, Lost King.
Yes. It stars Sally Hawkins as Philippa Langley, and I'm very proud of it. I made it with Stephen Frears again, who directed Philomena, and I wrote it with Steve Coogan, and Steve Coogan plays a character in the movie, and it almost, you can't even saying it sounds ridiculous, but it's the story of how Richard III from Shakespeare, who existed he died in 1470, 15th century anyway, 1480, embarrassing, I've forgotten the exact date, but 500 years ago he died, and his body was discovered, his remains were discovered in a car park in the English city of Leicester by a housewife. And it's the story of what happened.
Okay. last question.
Mm.
It's your first time in
Yes, in Espina,
What do
yeah.
you think?
How do you pronounce it? Is it Espina?
Espinho.
Just
Espinho.
Espinho.
Espinho, yeah.
Okay, Espinho. Sounds like an I to me, not E. Espinho.
Espinho.
Okay. Yes. I've been to Portugal
Yeah.
many times, but not to this part. And I find it, coming in through Porto and down to Espinho, it's what I was struck with was the history. You know, there are so many buildings that have been there for hundreds of years, and I love that feeling of the past being present. Although I have a problem with Espinho, is that when we left London yesterday, it was 28 degrees.
Okay.
And it was sunny. And here it was 17 degrees and raining.
Beach.
It's still beautiful though.
Okay, just one more thing I remember. Do you know that in Portugal, Stan and Holly were bucha e estica?
Oh, what were they called?
Bucha e estica.
And what does that
It's
translate as?
The fat one and the stretch one, the
The
slim one.
Wow.
Bucha e estica.
I didn't know that. I know in Germany they were called Fat and Stupid, I think.
Okay.
And they have different names all over the world. So it was,
Portugal,
what was it?
bucha
And
e estica.
and it's so Istica is the
The
stretchy,
stretch one, yes. The slim
right?
one
And the other one is
is bucha because it's the fat
yeah.
one.
Wow. And did they do Portuguese versions of their films
No,
where they spoke? Because they did German dialogue and French dialogue. You know.
But in Portugal, because of the government at the time, we didn't do the.
But are they loved in Portugal still?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a very
good.
good one.
Good.
Thank you. Jack.
Thank you.